After losing her son during childbirth, a single mother agrees to take care of a millionaire paraplegic, until one day she arrives without knocking and is shocked by what she sees. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The silence in the delivery room that December morning told Sarah Mitchell everything before the doctor spoke the words that shattered her world. 6 months later, that same silence followed her as she stood before the imposing gates of Armstrong Estate, clutching her resume and the small angel pendant that was her only connection to the child she'd lost. "State your name and purpose," demanded a voice through the intercom. "Sarah Mitchell, interview for the caregiver position." The gates opened with an ominous creak. As she walked up the winding driveway, the mansion loomed before her. Cold, imposing, unwelcoming. Maxwell Blackwood, a silver-haired man in an impeccable suit, greeted her with a handshake that lasted precisely 2 seconds. "Ms. Mitchell, follow me. You're 7 minutes early. I appreciate punctuality but detest eagerness." He led her through corridors that spoke of wealth and isolation. Vincent Armstrong was once a financial genius. The accident left him paralyzed. Below the waist 18 months ago. We've gone through 7 caregivers this year alone. "Why so many?" Sarah asked. Blackwood's step faltered. "Mr. Armstrong can be challenging. The position requires discretion and emotional detachment. Your task is to handle his physical needs, not become his friend." They stopped before a mahogany door. "His condition is not only physical but psychological. He was once a man who commanded boardrooms. Now he relies on others for basic functions." The door opened to reveal a modernist suite dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows. In the center sat Vincent Armstrong, his wheelchair facing away from them. "Your 10 o'clock is here," Blackwood announced. The wheelchair turned slowly. Sarah had seen photos of Armstrong online. Athletic, commanding, confident. The man before her was thinner, unshaven, with disheveled hair. Only his ice-blue eyes remained unchanged. Cold, penetrating, intelligent. "I thought we agreed on a male caregiver this time, Max," Armstrong said, his voice surprisingly strong. "I've had enough emotional women crying in my bathroom." Sarah's cheeks flushed. "I assure you, Mr. Armstrong, I won't be crying anywhere on your property." His eyebrows raised slightly. "Bold statement. What makes you so confident, Ms. Mitchell, Sarah Mitchell?" "Let's just say I've exhausted my tears on matters that warrant them." Something flickered across Armstrong's face. A momentary crack in his facade. "Leave us, Max," he commanded. After Blackwood departed, Armstrong wheeled closer, scrutinizing her. "Your resume says kindergarten teacher. Quite a leap to caregiver for a paraplegic." "I've been volunteering at Mercy Hospital. I've received training in basic care. That doesn't explain the career change." "Personal circumstances necessitated a change," she said simply. Armstrong's laugh was sharp. "Necessity? That I understand." He gestured to his legs. "Be clear. I don't need compassion or inspiration. I need someone who can help me bathe without making it a pity party, who won't flinch at my scars, who won't try to fix me. With all due respect, your assumptions about my intentions say more about you than me. I need this job for the salary, not to fulfill some savior complex." To her surprise, Armstrong didn't seem offended. "The salary is substantial because the job is demanding. 5 days, 12-hour shifts, quarters here if needed. Duties include therapy assistance, meal preparation, medication management. Previous caregivers found the isolation challenging. I don't entertain visitors or engage in small talk. When would you need me to start?" she asked. Armstrong looked momentarily taken aback. "Tomorrow, 7 a.m. I'll be here at 6:45. A ghost of a smile played at his mouth. "Not too eager, I hope." When Blackwood returned, Armstrong announced, "Ms. Mitchell starts tomorrow. See to the paperwork. And have her background check on my desk tonight." Outside, Sarah stood looking back at the mansion. Tomorrow she would enter not as a visitor but as an employee to a man determined to push away anyone who came close. Her hand found the angel pendant. "I don't know if this is the right choice," she whispered to the child who would never hear her, "but it's a chance to keep going." What Sarah couldn't know was that behind one of those windows, Vincent Armstrong watched her departure. A man haunted by his own secrets, one of which lay behind a locked door she would one day discover. Sarah arrived at the Armstrong estate at precisely 6:43 a.m. Dawn was just breaking, casting long shadows across the manicured grounds. She carried only a small duffel bag containing essentials for her shift. Blackwood opened the door before she could knock. "Punctual," he observed, checking his watch. "Follow me. I'll show you to the staff quarters first, then Mr. Armstrong's suite." The staff quarters were surprisingly comfortable, a small bedroom with adjoining bathroom, though clearly designed for functionality rather than luxury. Blackwood handed her a folder containing schedules, emergency contacts, and detailed instructions for Vincent's medications and physical therapy routines. "Mr. Armstrong typically wakes at 7:30. You'll prepare his breakfast, assist with morning hygiene, and administer his medication. His physical therapist visits Tuesdays and Thursdays. The rest of the time, you'll follow the exercises in this manual." Sarah nodded, absorbing everything. "And his medical history. Should I be aware of complications beyond the paralysis?" Blackwood's expression tightened. "Everything you need to know is in the file. Mr. Armstrong values his privacy." He consulted his watch again. "It's time. He may already be awake." Vincent was indeed awake, sitting by the window in the same position she'd left him the day before, as if he hadn't moved all night. Maybe he hadn't. "Good morning, Mr. Armstrong," Sarah said, keeping her voice neutral. He didn't turn immediately. "Ms. Mitchell, right on time." "I'll leave you to get acquainted with the routine," Blackwood said, already retreating. "I'll be in my office if needed." After he left, an uncomfortable silence filled the room. Vincent finally turned his wheelchair to face her. "Have you read the schedule?" he asked. "Yes. Would you like breakfast first, or would you prefer to start with your morning routine?" "Routine first. I dislike eating in my nightclothes." Sarah nodded, moving toward the adjoining bathroom to prepare. When she returned, Vincent was staring out the window again. "I can manage most of it myself," he said, his voice tight. "I just need assistance with certain aspects." "I understand," Sarah replied simply. The next hour proved challenging, not physically but emotionally. Vincent's body bore the scars of both the accident and subsequent surgeries. A particularly vivid one ran along his spine. He remained silent. Throughout the process, his jaw clenched, eyes fixed on some distant point. Sarah worked efficiently, respecting his dignity by maintaining a professional demeanor. When he winced during a transfer, she pretended not to notice. After he was dressed, a process in which he insisted on doing as much as possible himself, Sarah moved to prepare breakfast. "Black coffee, 2 scrambled eggs, no toast," Vincent instructed. As she worked in the kitchenette, she noticed him watching her, his expression unreadable. "You're different from the others," he observed. "How so?" No pointless chatter, no forced cheerfulness, no looks of pity. Sarah placed his breakfast before him. "Would you prefer chatter?" A hint of a smile touched his lips. "God, no." Later, as she helped him with his prescribed exercises, Sarah noticed a framed photograph on his desk, the only personal item in the austere room. It showed a younger Vincent standing on a sailboat, laughing with his arm around a beautiful blonde woman. "That's private," Vincent snapped, noticing her gaze. "I apologize," Sarah said, returning her attention to his exercises. "Catherine," he said after a long silence. "My ex-fiancée." "I see. She left 3 months after the accident. Couldn't handle it. Me being different." His laugh was bitter. "I don't blame her. I wouldn't want to be stuck with half a man either." Sarah met his eyes directly. "In my experience, Mr. Armstrong, it's not physical limitations that make someone half a person." Their gazes held for a long moment before Vincent looked away first. "I believe it's time for my medication, Ms. Mitchell." That night, in her small quarters, Sarah fingered her angel pendant as she always did before sleep. First day done, she whispered. He's difficult, but there's something beneath all that anger, something familiar. In his own room, Vincent lay awake, replaying his new caregiver's words in his mind, frustrated by his inability to categorize her into a convenient box. Most concerning was the unwelcome flicker of interest he'd felt when she'd looked him directly in the eyes, challenging him without words. Down the hall, behind a door, Sarah hadn't yet discovered, lay the secret that Vincent Armstrong guarded most fiercely of all. Weeks into her employment, Sarah had settled into a routine. Vincent remained aloof but less antagonistic, occasionally engaging in brief conversations during physical therapy sessions. This morning, Sarah noticed him grimacing as she helped him stretch. "Are you in pain?" she asked. "It's nothing," he replied, curtly, though his whitened knuckles suggested otherwise. "It's not nothing. Your body is communicating with you." Vincent scoffed. "My body and I aren't exactly on speaking terms these days." "Perhaps you're not listening properly," Sarah countered, adjusting her technique. Vincent's eyebrows raised, but he remained silent. Later, as Sarah prepared lunch, Blackwood entered unexpectedly. "Mr. Armstrong has a visitor this afternoon," he announced. "You'll need to make yourself scarce." "A visitor?" Sarah couldn't hide her surprise. "Business associate. Your presence won't be required." When Sarah mentioned the visitor to Vincent, his expression darkened. "Blackwood overreaches. I have no interest in seeing Richard Mercer." "Shall I inform Mr. Blackwood?" Vincent hesitated. "No, let him come. It might be illuminating." That afternoon, Sarah retreated to the gardens but found herself drawn to Vincent's suite. Through the partially open window, she could hear raised voices. "The board is getting impatient, Vincent," a man, presumably Mercer, was saying. "Your absence is creating instability." "My absence didn't seem to bother them when I was building Armstrong Financial from nothing," Vincent retorted. "That was before you became compromised. Paralyzed, Richard, you can say it." Sarah shifted position, accidentally rustling some bushes. The voices fell silent. Later, when she returned to Vincent's suite, his mood was thunderous. "Your garden tour enlightening?" he asked acidly. Sarah froze. "I didn't mean to eavesdrop. Of course you did." Vincent's eyes flashed. "Everyone wants to know the gossip about the crippled millionaire and his failed empire. That's not spare me. Just do your job, nothing more." That night, Sarah was awakened by shouting. She rushed to Vincent's suite to find him trapped in a nightmare, thrashing against tangled sheets. "Vincent," she called, then louder. "Vincent!" He woke with a gasp, disoriented, vulnerable. "You were dreaming," Sarah said softly. Recognition filled his eyes, followed by embarrassment. "Leave. Vincent, please," he added, voice breaking slightly. "Just go." Sarah hesitated, then nodded. At the door, she turned back. "My nightmares are about the delivery room," she said quietly. "What are yours about?" Vincent stared at her, conflict evident in his face. For a moment, she thought he might answer. Instead, he turned away. "Good night, Ms. Mitchell." The following days brought a subtle shift in Vincent's demeanor. Though he maintained his distance, Sarah noticed small changes, his gaze lingering when she spoke, moments of unguarded emotion quickly masked. Something about her late-night confession had altered the dynamic between them. One morning, as Sarah helped Vincent with his stretches, she noticed a leather-bound book beside his bed. "You're reading Hemingway?" she asked, recognizing the cover. "Rereading," he corrected. "The Old Man and the Sea." "The struggle against insurmountable odds," Sarah observed. "I always found it both depressing and inspiring." Vincent's mouth twitched slightly. "A contradiction, much like Hemingway himself." "My husband introduced me to Hemingway," Sarah said, then immediately stiffened, realizing she'd never mentioned a husband before. Vincent caught the shift. "Your husband? You don't wear a ring." Sarah focused on adjusting Vincent's leg, avoiding his eyes. "It's complicated." "Most things are," he replied, surprisingly without pressing further. Later, as Sarah prepared lunch, Blackwood appeared unannounced, in the doorway. Ms. Mitchell, a word. It wasn't a request. In the hallway, his voice dropped to a whisper. I've noticed Mr. Armstrong's routine has been altered. We've adjusted his therapy schedule based on his comfort and progress, Sarah replied. That's not your decision to make. You're here to follow the established protocols. With respect, Mr. Blackwood, I'm here to provide care that benefits Mr. Armstrong. Blackwood's eyes narrowed. Don't overestimate your position here, Ms. Mitchell. People who grow too comfortable in this house tend to discover how quickly things can change. The veiled threat lingered in Sarah's mind as she returned to Vincent. He was staring out the window, a familiar pose she'd come to recognize as his way of processing difficult thoughts. Blackwood's concerned about your well-being, she said. Tempting lightness, Vincent snorted. Blackwood's concerned about Blackwood, always has been. He seems protective of you. He's protective of what I represent. Vincent turned to face her. Tell me about your husband. The abrupt change of subject caught Sarah off guard. She nearly dropped the plate she was holding. I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. Vincent backtracked, showing rare consideration. No. Sarah set down the plate, gathering herself. David died 3 years ago, car accident. Vincent's expression softened. I'm sorry. We'd been trying to have a child for years, she continued, surprising herself with the disclosure. When I finally got pregnant last year, it felt like a miracle, like David had somehow arranged it from wherever he is now. Understanding dawned in Vincent's eyes. And the child? Sarah's hand moved instinctively to her pendant. Stillborn. A boy, they don't know why. The room fell silent, filled only with the weight of shared grief. Finally, Vincent spoke softly. So when you said you'd exhausted your tears on matters that warrant them? Yes, Vincent nodded slowly. Earlier, you said my body was trying to communicate with me. What do you think about grief? Does it communicate too? Sarah considered this. I think grief speaks loudest when we try to silence it. Something shifted. In Vincent's eyes. Recognition, perhaps. He wheeled closer to his desk and retrieved a key from the drawer. There's something I want to show you, he said, holding out the key. The door at the end of the east corridor. Would you unlock it for me? I'll meet you there. Sarah took the key, feeling its weight. Not just metal, but trust being tentatively extended. At the end of the east corridor stood a door she'd noticed but never approached. With slightly trembling hands, Sarah inserted the key and turned it. The door opened with a soft click, revealing darkness beyond. Sarah hesitated at the threshold, unsure if she should enter or wait. The sound of Vincent's wheelchair approaching made the decision for her. She stepped inside, feeling for a light switch. When the lights flickered on, Sarah gasped. The room was a state-of-the-art home gym, but what caught her attention was the parallel bars, treadmill with harness supports, and other specialized equipment clearly designed for rehabilitation. This isn't on any of the house plans, Blackwood. Showed me, she murmured as Vincent entered. Because Blackwood doesn't know about it, Vincent replied. I had it installed secretly after my doctors declared my condition permanent. Sarah walked slowly around the room, examining the equipment. You've been working on your own recovery. Attempting to, Vincent corrected. Without much success, he wheeled to the parallel bars and looked up at them with a mixture of determination and defeat. The finest equipment money can buy, and I can barely pull myself upright for 10 seconds. Sarah understood the significance of what he was sharing, not just a secret room, but his private hope, his refusal to accept the prognosis. Have you told your doctors? Vincent's laugh was bitter. So they can patronize me with talk of accepting reality? No, thank you. Sarah approached the bars, professional assessment taking over. This setup is excellent, but you're missing something crucial, which is proper technique and someone to spot you. She met his gaze directly. Let me help. Vincent's face betrayed conflicting emotions, pride warring with desperate hope. Why would you do that? Because I know what it's like to keep fighting when everyone tells you to move on. Sarah held his gaze. And because it's literally my job to assist with your physical therapy. A ghost of a smile touched Vincent's lips. Fair point. Over the next hour, Sarah helped Vincent position himself at the bars, showed him proper weight distribution techniques, and supported him through a modified routine. "It's about training your body to remember," she explained. "The neural pathways may be damaged, but they can sometimes be rebuilt or rerouted." Vincent's arms trembled with exertion as he supported his weight. For a brief moment, Sarah felt what might have been a voluntary muscle contraction in his leg. "Did you feel that?" she asked, excitement coloring her voice. Vincent shook his head, frustration evident. "Nothing." Sarah didn't push, but made a mental note. The twitch had been subtle, but unmistakable. A small spark of hope ignited within her. After the session, Vincent was uncharacteristically quiet as Sarah helped him back to his suite. She wondered if she'd overstepped pushing him too hard. "Thank you," he finally said as she prepared to leave for the evening, "for not dismissing the possibility." "Hope isn't a character flaw, Vincent." He looked away. "In my experience, it's often just delayed disappointment." "Maybe," Sarah acknowledged. "But without it, what's the point of anything?" Later that night, Sarah found a sealed envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a carefully folded note in Vincent's precise handwriting. "Sarah, same. Time tomorrow in the gym, if you're willing." Sarah smiled, tucking the note into her copy of The Old Man and the Sea that she'd brought from home. In his room, Vincent stared at the ceiling, replaying the moment in the gym. He hadn't told Sarah the truth. He had felt something, the faintest sensation, like a distant echo from limbs he'd believed were permanently silent. He was afraid to acknowledge it, afraid that naming the hope might somehow jinx it. But for the first time in 18 months, Vincent Armstrong fell asleep thinking about possibilities rather than limitations. Over the next 3 weeks, Sarah and Vincent established a new routine. Each afternoon they would slip away to the secret gym, working together on his rehabilitation. Vincent's progress was minimal but undeniable. Increased stamina, better balance, and occasionally, those small, involuntary muscle contractions that Sarah noticed but Vincent refused to acknowledge. Outside these sessions, Vincent gradually opened up, sharing stories of his life before the accident, his rise from humble beginnings to financial success, his passion for sailing, his plans for the future that had been derailed. "I was going to sail around the world," he confessed one evening as Sarah prepared his dinner. "Had the yacht custom built. It's sitting in a marina now, gathering barnacles." "You could still sail," Sarah suggested. "With modifications, it wouldn't be the same," Vincent interrupted, then sighed. "I'm sorry, that sounds ungrateful." "It sounds human," Sarah corrected gently. Their conversation was interrupted by Blackwood's sudden appearance. "Vincent, I need to discuss something with you." His gaze flicked dismissively to Sarah. "Alone." Vincent hesitated. "Ms. Mitchell can stay." Blackwood's expression tightened. "It's about Catherine." The atmosphere in the room instantly changed. Vincent's face hardened, his fingers gripping the arms of his wheelchair. "What about her?" "She's back in town. She's been calling the office, asking about your condition." Vincent was silent for a long moment. "And? I've kept her at bay, but she's persistent. Says she wants to make amends." Sarah busied herself at the counter, trying to be inconspicuous, but her mind raced. Catherine, the woman in the photograph, the ex-fiancée who had abandoned Vincent after his accident. "Tell her I'm not interested," Vincent said flatly. Blackwood cleared his throat. "She's threatening to go to the board, Vincent. Claims she has concerns about your management decisions being made through me." "Let her try," Vincent snapped, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. After Blackwood left, silence hung heavy in the room. Sarah finished preparing dinner, unsure whether to mention what she'd heard. "Catherine is a mistake I'd rather not revisit," Vincent said suddenly, answering her unasked question. "She made her choice when she decided a man in a wheelchair wasn't worth loving." Sarah placed his dinner before him. "People can change." "You believe that?" Vincent's tone was skeptical. I have to, Sarah replied quietly. Later that night, Sarah headed to her quarters. She nearly collided with a woman in the hallway, tall, blonde, impeccably dressed. Recognition was instant. The woman from the photograph. Who are you? The woman demanded, her tone imperious. Sarah Mitchell, Mr. Armstrong's caregiver. The woman's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. Caregiver. How quaint. I'm Catherine Sinclair, Vincent's fiancée. Ex-fiancée, Sarah corrected before she could stop herself. Catherine's smile was cold. Temporary status, I assure you. Vincent and I have unfinished business. She eyed Sarah assessingly. You're rather young for a nurse. I'm not a nurse. No, you're not, Catherine agreed, her implication clear. Word of advice, don't get attached. Vincent has a habit of discarding people when they've served their purpose. Just ask the previous caregivers. With that, she brushed past Sarah, the scent of expensive perfume lingering in her wake. Sarah stood frozen, unsure what to do. Should she warn Vincent that Catherine was in the house? Blackwood must have let her in, despite Vincent's wishes. Her decision was made for her when she heard raised voices from Vincent's suite. Moving closer, she caught fragments of conversation. Can't just appear after all this time. Vincent's voice, angry. Still legally your power of attorney. Catherine's response, calculating, changed after you left. Prove it. Sarah backed away, troubled by what she'd heard. Power of attorney? What exactly was Catherine's legal standing in Vincent's life? In her room, Sarah pulled out her phone and did something she'd avoided until now. She searched for information about Vincent Armstrong's accident. What she found chilled her to the bone. Sarah stared at her phone, the article illuminating her face in the darkened room. Financial titan Vincent Armstrong critically injured in suspicious single-vehicle accident. The details were sparse but troubling. Late-night drive on a deserted road. No witnesses. Car found at the bottom of a ravine. Initial police reports suggesting brake tampering but no conclusive evidence. Case eventually classified as an accident, despite lingering questions. Most disturbing was the timing. Just days after Vincent had announced a major restructuring of Armstrong Financial that would have removed several long-standing board members. Sarah's mind raced. Was it possible Vincent's accident hadn't been an accident at all? And if so, who stood to benefit? The board members? Blackwood? Even Catherine? A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Sarah quickly turned off her phone and opened the door to find Vincent outside, his expression strained. I apologize for this unusual request, he said. But would you join me for a drink? I find myself in need of. He hesitated. Conversation. In his suite, Vincent poured 2 glasses of whiskey, his movements precise despite his obvious agitation. Catherine's here, Sarah said, accepting the glass. You met her. Not a question, briefly, she introduced herself as your fiancée. Vincent grimaced. Catherine excels at rewriting reality to suit her purposes. She mentioned being your power of attorney. Vincent took a long sip before responding. A legal arrangement made before the accident. I was in a coma for 2 weeks. When I woke, Catherine was making decisions about my treatment, my company, my life. And now? I've been working with a lawyer to change it, but Catherine has. Complicated things. Claims I'm not competent to manage my own affairs due to my condition. Sarah absorbed this with growing concern. That's why the rehabilitation room is secret. Vincent nodded. If Catherine or the board discovered I was attempting recovery, they'd use it against me. Claim I'm in denial, refusing to accept reality, making irrational decisions. But that's absurd. Pursuing physical therapy is completely rational. Not when the top neurologists have declared my condition irreversible. Vincent's laugh was bitter. The irony is suffocating. If I accept their prognosis, I'm too disabled to manage my affairs. If I fight it, I'm delusional and still unfit. Sarah leaned forward. Vincent, I found an article about your accident. It suggested it might not have been an accident at all. Vincent went still. Why were you researching my accident? Because I care what happens to you, Sarah admitted. And because Catherine's sudden reappearance feels calculated. Vincent studied her for a long moment. I've had the same suspicions about my accident, he finally confessed, but no proof. Who would have benefited from your incapacitation? Several board members I was planning to oust. Blackwood, whose position I was reconsidering, and Catherine, who had access to significant funds as my fiancée, particularly if I were permanently disabled. Do you trust anyone? Sarah asked. Softly. Vincent met her gaze directly. I'm beginning to. The intimacy of the moment hung between them. Fragile and unexpected. Catherine's presence complicates things, Vincent continued, breaking the silence. She'll be watching closely, looking for leverage. We should suspend our rehabilitation sessions temporarily. Sarah felt a pang of disappointment. Is that what you want? What I want, Vincent said carefully, is to continue fighting. But not at the expense of giving Catherine ammunition. Sarah considered this. What if we could continue somewhere she wouldn't think to look? Vincent raised an eyebrow. What do you have in mind? Your yacht. You said it's sitting unused. Could we adapt it for therapy sessions? For the first time since Sarah had met him, Vincent Armstrong smiled. A genuine, unguarded smile that transformed his face. Ms. Mitchell, he said, you continue to surprise me. The next morning, Sarah found Catherine waiting for her in the kitchen, elegant in a silk blouse and tailored pants. You and Vincent seem to have quite the late-night chat, Catherine observed casually. Sarah kept her expression neutral. Mr. Armstrong had trouble sleeping. Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. Yes, he's always struggled with that. Among other things, I do hope you're not getting attached. Vincent can be quite charming when he wants something. Mr. Armstrong has been nothing but professional with me, Sarah replied evenly. Of course he has. Catherine's tone was patronizing. Just remember your place in this house, Sarah. Some roles are temporary by design. As Catherine sauntered away, Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. Catherine Sinclair was dangerous, and clearly viewing Sarah as a threat. The marina sparkled under the midday sun as Blackwood reluctantly drove Vincent and Sarah to the yacht. Vincent had insisted on the outing, claiming he needed to check on his investment. Blackwood had protested but ultimately relented when Vincent mentioned involving his lawyer. I don't understand why your caregiver needs to accompany you, Blackwood muttered as he helped transfer Vincent from the car to his wheelchair. Because I require care, Max. It's rather implied in her title. Vincent's tone was dry. The yacht was impressive, a 65-foot vessel with sleek lines and custom modifications. As they boarded via the specially designed ramp, Sarah noticed Vincent's expression change, a mixture of pain and longing crossing his features. I'll return in 2 hours, Blackwood said, clearly unhappy with the arrangement. Make it 3, Vincent countered. I have thorough inspection plans. Once Blackwood was gone, Vincent led Sarah below deck to a spacious living area. This was my sanctuary, he explained, gesturing around. I designed it for extended journeys, comfort, without excess. Sarah noted the thoughtful layout, the quality materials, the unobtrusive luxury. The space reflected Vincent's personality, practical, refined, and more welcoming than his sterile mansion suite. It's beautiful, she said sincerely. It was supposed to be my future. Vincent's voice held uncharacteristic vulnerability. After building the company, I planned to step back, spend time on the water. It could still be your future, Sarah suggested gently. Different from what you imagined, but still yours. Vincent considered this, then changed the subject. You mentioned adapting it for therapy. What did you have in mind? For the next hour, they worked together, identifying areas that could accommodate rehabilitation equipment. The yacht already had good stabilizing rails, open spaces, and even a small swimming pool that could be perfect for water therapy. The water would provide buoyancy, making it easier to attempt standing and walking movements, Sarah explained. Vincent nodded, his expression thoughtful. I'd need help getting in and out. That's what I'm here for, Sarah replied simply. There, Eyes met and something shifted in the air between them. Vincent cleared his throat. "There's something else I want to show you," he said, wheeling toward a built-in bookcase. He pressed a hidden switch, and a panel slid open, revealing a safe. After entering a combination, he removed a thumb drive. "Everything I've gathered about the accident and the suspicious activities at Armstrong Financial afterward," he explained. "Financial transactions, board meeting minutes, communication between Blackwood and certain board members. You think Catherine was involved? I don't know. But her reappearance now, just as I'm making progress on changing my power of attorney, isn't coincidental." Sarah took the drive, understanding its significance. "What do you want me to do with this?" "Keep it safe. If anything happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you," Sarah interrupted firmly. Vincent smiled ruefully. "Your optimism is either your greatest strength or a dangerous liability." "Sometimes they're the same thing," Sarah replied. Their conversation was interrupted by voices above deck. Vincent tensed, putting a finger to his lips. They listened as footsteps moved across the deck. "Should be unlocked," a male voice said. "Blackwood mentioned Armstrong was coming today." "Perfect opportunity," replied a woman's voice, Catherine. "Find anything that shows he's mentally unfit. Journal entries, medication changes, anything." Vincent's jaw tightened. Sarah reached for her phone, but Vincent gripped her wrist, shaking his head. He indicated a side door that led to a different exit from the yacht. Together, they navigated the alternative route, Vincent guiding Sarah through the yacht's layout. They emerged on the opposite side just as Blackwood's car pulled into the marina parking lot. "Perfect timing," Vincent muttered, then raised his voice. "Mr. Blackwood, we were just finishing up." Catherine and her companion appeared on deck, momentarily, startled. "Vincent!" Catherine recovered quickly, her smile practiced. "What a coincidence, I was just showing Richard the yacht. Such fond memories here." "Indeed," Vincent replied coldly. "Though I don't recall giving either of you permission to board." Catherine's smile didn't waver. "Darling, you never minded before." "Many things have changed, Catherine, including the locks, as of tomorrow," as Blackwood drove them back to the mansion. Vincent was silent, his expression stormy. Sarah's hand remained in her pocket, fingers wrapped around the thumb drive, a small piece of plastic that might contain the key to unraveling the conspiracy surrounding Vincent Armstrong's shattered life. Back at the mansion, tension hung in the air like an approaching storm. Sarah helped Vincent into his suite, hyper-aware of every sound in the hallway. The yacht incident had confirmed their suspicions. Catherine was actively searching for ways to undermine Vincent. "They'll try a different approach now," Vincent said once they were alone. "Catherine doesn't retreat, she adapts." Sarah nodded, her mind on the thumb drive now hidden in her quarters. "What's our next move?" Vincent wheeled to his desk and removed a cell phone from a drawer, not his usual one. "Burner phone," he explained. "I have a contact at the police department who reopened the investigation into my accident. I need to warn him about Catherine's activities." As Vincent made his call, Sarah busied herself preparing his medication. Through the window, she spotted Catherine and Blackwood in the garden, engaged in what appeared to be a heated discussion. Their body language suggested disagreement, with Catherine repeatedly gesturing toward the house. "Interesting," Vincent commented following her gaze. "Trouble in paradise. You think they're working together? I know they are. The question is whether Blackwood is getting cold feet or Catherine is pushing for something he's reluctant to do." After Vincent finished his call, Sarah helped him with his evening exercises. They worked in comfortable silence, their movements synchronized after weeks of practice. Sarah noticed Vincent seemed more fatigued than usual. "Let's cut it short today," she suggested. Vincent shook his head stubbornly. "No, I need to be stronger." "Vincent, recovery isn't just about pushing harder. It's also about knowing when to rest." He looked up at her, and Sarah was struck by the vulnerability in his eyes. "Time isn't on my side, Sarah. Catherine's return accelerates everything." Sarah knelt beside his wheelchair, meeting his gaze directly. "We'll figure this out, I promise." Something shifted in Vincent's expression, a softening around his eyes, his mouth. Slowly, deliberately, he reached out and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "Why are you really here, Sarah?" he asked softly. "This has become more than a job for you." Sarah's heart hammered in her chest. "Because you deserve someone who believes in you. Because I—" The door burst open and Catherine strode in, her timing impeccable. She froze momentarily at the tableau before her, Sarah kneeling beside Vincent, his hand at her face. "Well," Catherine drawled, her voice dangerously sweet. "Isn't this cozy?" Vincent withdrew his hand but didn't move away from Sarah. "Do you ever knock, Catherine?" "Why should I? This is practically my house too." She smiled at Sarah. "Darling, would you mind giving Vincent and me some privacy? We have personal matters to discuss." Before Sarah could respond, Vincent said firmly, "Ms. Mitchell stays." Catherine's smile tightened. "Always so stubborn, Vincent." "Fine." She perched on the edge of his desk. "I've been reviewing your recent financial decisions, and frankly, I'm concerned. The board is too. These investments in experimental medical technologies, the sudden interest in accessibility modifications for your yacht, it suggests a concerning pattern of denial. My investments are sound, Catherine. The medical technology companies are showing excellent returns. It's not about returns. It's about your state of mind." Catherine's voice softened with practiced concern. "You're chasing impossible cures instead of accepting reality." Vincent's knuckles whitened on his armrests. "I'm pursuing research in fields that interest me, that's all." Catherine sighed dramatically. "Vincent, please. We both know what you're doing." She glanced at Sarah. "And now you've dragged this poor girl into your delusions. What have you promised her? A miracle recovery? A share of your fortune?" Sarah stood, anger flaring. "That's enough." "Oh, she speaks," Catherine mocked. "Tell me, Sarah, has Vincent told you about the other caregivers who thought they could fix him? How he crushed their spirits when they inevitably failed?" "Get out," Vincent said, his voice deadly quiet. Catherine stood, smoothing her skirt. "I'm only trying to protect you, darling, from yourself and from those who would take advantage." At the door, she paused. "Oh, and the board meeting has been moved up. 2 days from now. Your presence is requested, though of course I'd be happy to represent your interests if you're not feeling up to it." After she left, Vincent slammed his fist against his armrest. "She's making her move." Sarah touched his shoulder gently. "Vincent, what board meeting? What's happening in 2 days?" His expression was grim. "The meeting where they'll vote on whether I'm fit to retain control of my company." The next morning dawned with a sense of urgency. Vincent was already awake when Sarah arrived, studying documents spread across his desk. "I've been reviewing everything. From the thumb drive," he explained, his eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. "There's a pattern of financial irregularities beginning just after my accident." Sarah placed a cup of coffee beside him. "What kind of irregularities?" "Funds diverted to shell companies, questionable consultancy fees, strategic investments suddenly abandoned." He rubbed his temples. "All decisions supposedly authorized by me during my recovery, when Catherine held my power of attorney. Can you prove she acted without your consent?" "That's the problem. I was heavily medicated after coming out of the coma. There are periods I don't remember clearly." Vincent's frustration was palpable. "It would be my word against hers, and, with my current condition, they'd claim your memory is compromised," Sarah finished. Vincent nodded grimly. "Exactly." Sarah studied the documents. "What about Blackwood? These transfers required his approval as well." "Blackwood is careful. He ensures technical legality while serving his own interests." Vincent's expression hardened. "I trusted him for 15 years. That's the real betrayal." As Sarah helped Vincent prepare for the day, she noticed his determination had an edge of desperation. During physical therapy, he pushed himself harder than usual, refusing breaks. "Vincent, you need to pace yourself," she cautioned as he attempted to stand between the parallel bars for the 3rd time. "The board meeting is tomorrow," he replied through gritted teeth. "I need to show strength. Exhausting yourself won't help. You need to be mentally sharp tomorrow, not physically depleted. Vincent relented, allowing Sarah to help him back into his wheelchair. As she knelt to adjust his footrests, he caught her hand. "Thank you," he said softly, "for believing in me when no one else did." The sincerity in his voice made Sarah's heart catch. "That's not entirely selfless of me," she admitted. "I need to believe in second chances, in the possibility of rebuilding after everything falls apart." Vincent's gaze held hers. "Is that what we're doing, Sarah? Rebuilding?" Before she could answer, Vincent's secure phone rang. His expression changed as he listened to the caller. "Are you certain?" he asked, tension evident in his voice. After receiving confirmation, he ended the call and turned to Sarah. "That was my police contact. They found evidence the brake lines on my car were deliberately cut." Sarah gasped. "So it was attempted murder, and they found fingerprints that don't match mine or the garage mechanics. Whose are they?" "They're running them now." Vincent's expression was grim. "But this changes everything. If I can prove someone tried to kill me and is now trying to take my company." A knock at the door interrupted them. Blackwood entered, his usual composed demeanor slightly frayed. "Vincent, we need to discuss tomorrow's presentation to the board." His eyes narrowed at their close proximity, but he made no comment. "Of course, Max," Vincent replied with unexpected affability. "Sarah, would you mind giving us the room, and perhaps check if that package I mentioned arrived?" Sarah understood the coded message. "Right away, Mr. Armstrong." In her quarters, Sarah transferred the thumb drive's contents to her personal laptop and composed an email to the address Vincent had given her, his lawyer. She attached the financial documents along with a summary of recent events, including Catherine's suspicious behavior and the new evidence about the brake lines. As she finished, a text arrived on her phone from an unknown number. "Meeting moved up. Coming for Vincent now. Get to safe room." Sarah's heart raced as she ran toward Vincent's suite. Halfway there, she heard raised voices. Slowing her pace, she approached cautiously and peered around the corner. Catherine, Blackwood, and two men in suits stood in Vincent's doorway. "This is ridiculous," Vincent was saying, his voice tight with controlled anger. "The meeting is scheduled for tomorrow." "The board has concerns about your mental state," Catherine replied smoothly. "These gentlemen are healthcare professionals who will evaluate you before the meeting." "You mean sedate me?" Vincent countered. "Make me appear incompetent." "Only if necessary, Mr. Armstrong," one of the men said. "We're here to help." Sarah retreated silently, mind racing. The safe room Vincent had mentioned must be the secret gym. She needed to warn him, create a distraction, anything to give him time to get there. Taking a deep breath, Sarah rounded the corner and walked directly toward the confrontation, a plan forming with each step. Sarah approached the group with rehearsed casualness, carrying Vincent's medication tray. "Excuse me, Mr. Armstrong needs his afternoon medication." All eyes turned to her. Catherine's expression soured. "It can wait." "Actually, it can't," Sarah countered firmly. "His blood pressure medication is time-sensitive. Missing a dose could cause complications." The medical professionals exchanged concerned glances, exactly the reaction Sarah had hoped for. "Perhaps we should allow Ms. Mitchell to administer the, medication first," one suggested. Catherine began to protest, but Blackwood interrupted. "A few minutes won't make a difference." They reluctantly stepped aside. Sarah entered Vincent's suite, closing the door partially behind her. Vincent's eyes held a question. "Your medication, Mr. Armstrong," Sarah said meaningfully, setting down the tray. She leaned closer, whispering, "Safe room. Now." Vincent nodded imperceptibly. "Would you mind getting me some water, Ms. Mitchell? The filtered kind from the kitchen." "Of course." Sarah moved to leave but turned back as if forgetting something. "Oh, and should I prepare the therapy room for later?" "Yes," Vincent replied, understanding her real question. The usual setup. In the hallway, Catherine watched Sarah, suspiciously. "I'll accompany you to the kitchen. Suit yourself," Sarah replied, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. In the kitchen, Sarah filled a glass with filtered water, mentally calculating the quickest route from Vincent's suite to the secret gym. "He won't get better, you know," Catherine said suddenly. "No matter how much therapy you do." Sarah kept her expression neutral. "It's not about getting better, it's about maintaining function." Catherine laughed coldly. "Is that what he told you?" "Vincent always was good at crafting convenient narratives." She stepped closer. "Tell me, what did he promise you? Money? Security? Love?" "Mr. Armstrong has been nothing but professional." "Please," Catherine scoffed. "I see how you look at him, how pathetically eager you are to please." "It's the same with all his caregivers." Sarah's grip tightened on the glass. "If you'll excuse me, Mr. Armstrong needs his medication." As they returned, Sarah felt a mounting sense of dread. The hallway outside Vincent's suite was empty. No Vincent. No Blackwood. No medical evaluators. Catherine smiled at Sarah's obvious concern. "Looking for someone. They've taken Vincent to his study for the evaluation. Professional setting, you understand?" Sarah's mind raced. The study was in the opposite direction from the gym. Vincent wouldn't have gone willingly. "I still need to give him his medication," Sarah insisted. "I'll make sure he gets it," Catherine replied, holding out her hand for the water glass. Sarah reluctantly handed it over, mind searching for a new plan. "I should check if he needs anything else." "That won't be necessary. You're relieved for the rest of the day, Ms. Mitchell." "In fact," Catherine's smile turned predatory, "I've discussed your performance with Mr. Blackwood. We both agree it would be best if you packed your things. You can't fire me, only Mr. Armstrong can do that. Vincent is in no condition to make personnel decisions right now. As his power of attorney, I'm acting in his best interest." Sarah stood her ground. "I'd like to hear that from him directly." Catherine's facade of pleasantness disappeared. "Security will escort you out if necessary." "Don't make this uglier than it needs to be." Sarah knew she was outmaneuvered, for now. She needed to reach the safe room before they realized Vincent wasn't in the study. If he'd managed to escape, that's where he would go. "Fine, I'll get my things." Catherine watched as Sarah headed toward the staff quarters, then turned in the opposite direction. The moment Catherine was out of sight, Sarah changed course, taking a service corridor toward the east wing. As she neared the secret gym, Sarah heard angry voices from around the corner. "Find him," Blackwood was shouting. "Check all the rooms." "He couldn't have gone far." Sarah ducked into an alcove as security personnel rushed past. Once clear, she made her way to the hidden door and slipped inside. The gym was dark and seemingly empty. "Vincent?" she whispered. Silence. Then, from the shadows behind the weight equipment, "Sarah?" Vincent wheeled forward, relief evident on his face. "Thank God. I managed to distract them and slip away, but they'll search everywhere." "They're already looking," Sarah confirmed. "Catherine tried to fire me." Vincent's expression hardened. "Of course she did. You're the only one who knows what's really happening." He reached for her hand. "Sarah, there's an exit through there, a service elevator that leads to the garage. We need to leave now." "Where will we go?" "The yacht. It's the last place they'd expect. And we need to get to the board meeting tomorrow with proof." As they moved toward the hidden exit, a sudden crash came from the door. Someone was trying to get in. "They found us," Vincent hissed, wheeling toward the exit with Sarah, close behind. The door shuddered again under another impact. The service elevator was small, clearly meant for maintenance staff. Sarah quickly maneuvered Vincent's wheelchair inside, squeezing in beside him as the door to the gym finally burst open. Through the closing elevator doors, she caught a glimpse of Blackwood's furious face. "Where does this lead exactly?" Sarah asked as they descended. "Underground garage. There's a van with hand controls I can drive." Vincent's voice was tense but focused. "I had it modified after the accident, though I've only used it once." The elevator opened directly into a secluded section of the garage. Vincent led them to a dark blue van parked in the corner. "So keys are hidden in the wheel well," he instructed. Sarah retrieved them and helped Vincent transfer into the driver's seat. The specialized controls allowed him to operate the accelerator and brake with his hands. As Sarah climbed into the passenger seat, the elevator they'd just exited lit up. Someone was coming down. "Time to go," Vincent said, starting the engine. They pulled out just as the elevator doors opened, revealing Blackwood and 2 security guards. Vincent navigated through the garage with surprising skill, emerging onto a service road that bypassed the main entrance. "They'll check the marina first," Vincent said, taking an unexpected turn away from the coast. "We need somewhere to regroup before heading to the yacht." "I know a place," Sarah offered. "My friend Emma's cabin. She's in Europe for 3 months and gave me a key. It's about an hour north in the mountains." Vincent nodded, following her directions. They drove in tense silence, both watching for any sign of pursuit. After several deliberate detours to ensure they weren't being followed, Vincent relaxed. "Lightly, I don't understand how they found the gym so quickly," he said. Sarah frowned. "Catherine mentioned therapy when we were in the kitchen. She might have already known about it. Or they've been monitoring us. Security cameras, listening devices." Vincent's knuckles whitened on the steering controls. "I've been a fool thinking I had any privacy in my own home. What will they do now? Everything possible to discredit me before the board meeting. They'll claim I'm paranoid, delusional, that I kidnapped you." Vincent glanced at her. "Sarah, I'm sorry I've dragged you into this. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose to be here." Sarah touched his arm briefly. "Besides, I'm the one who suggested this daring escape." The ghost of a smile touched Vincent's lips. "So you did." The cabin was small but charming, nestled among pine trees with a view of the distant lake. Sarah helped Vincent up the ramp that, fortunately, Emma had installed for her father's visits. Inside, Sarah quickly assessed their situation. "There's food, clean water, electricity. We should be safe here overnight." Vincent wheeled to the window, checking their surroundings. "We need a plan for tomorrow. The board meeting is at 10 a.m. We need concrete evidence of Catherine and Blackwood's manipulation." "We have the financial documents from the thumb drive," Sarah reminded him. "It's not enough. We need proof of Catherine's involvement in the accident, or at least her conspiracy with Blackwood." Vincent rubbed his temples. "If only my police contact could match those fingerprints before the meeting." Sarah made them tea while Vincent reviewed the documents they had. As the evening deepened into night, Sarah found bedding for the pull-out couch. "You take the bedroom," Vincent insisted. "I'll be fine out here." "The bedroom has more space for maneuvering your chair," Sarah countered practically. "I'll take the couch." Vincent relented. As Sarah helped him prepare for bed, the intimacy of their situation struck her. Away from the mansion, they were just 2 people trusting each other completely. "Sarah," Vincent said softly as she adjusted his pillows, "if tomorrow doesn't go as planned—" "It will," she interrupted. "But if it doesn't," he persisted, "I want you to know that these past weeks with you have given me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope." Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, her heart pounding. "Vincent." He reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "I know the timing is impossible. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this makes no sense. But I'm falling in love with you. Delara Mitchell." The confession hung in the air between them, both terrifying and exhilarating. "I lost everything I thought mattered," Sarah whispered. "My husband, my baby, my sense of purpose. Then I met you, angry, difficult, brilliant you, and somehow I started finding pieces of myself again." Vincent's eyes searched hers. "Is that a polite way of letting me down?" Sarah shook her head, a smile breaking through despite the gravity of their situation. "No, you impossible man. It's me saying I'm falling in love with you too." Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a promise of possibilities neither had dared imagine until now. Outside the cabin, unbeknownst to them, headlights briefly illuminated the darkened road before switching off. Dawn broke with golden light filtering through the pines surrounding the cabin. Sarah woke on the couch, momentarily disoriented before remembering everything. Their escape, the cabin, Vincent's confession, their kiss. A smile touched her lips. Despite the uncertainty they faced, her phone chimed with a message from an unknown number. "Fingerprints identified. Meeting you at boardroom. Bring VA. Detective Mason." Sarah's heart raced as she hurried to Vincent's room. He was already awake, staring out the window with an expression she couldn't read. "Vincent, great news," she began, but stopped when she saw his face clearly. "What's wrong?" "We have company," he said quietly, gesturing toward the window. Sarah peered through the blinds to see a black SUV parked just beyond the cabin's driveway, partially hidden among the trees. Two men sat inside, watching the cabin. "Blackwood security," Vincent confirmed. "They must have tracked us somehow." "Your phone?" Vincent shook his head. "Burner phone, remember? More likely they followed our trail through traffic cameras or local informants." Sarah showed him the message. "Detective Mason identified the fingerprints. He's meeting us at Armstrong Financial." Hope flickered in Vincent's eyes. "This could be the break we need." He glanced again at the watchers outside. "But first, we need to get past our friends out there." They quickly formed a plan. Sarah gathered their essential documents while Vincent called Detective Mason to confirm their situation. Then, in a calculated risk, Sarah walked straight out. The front door with an empty garbage bag, as if performing a routine morning chore. The men in the SUV immediately tensed, one speaking into a radio. Sarah continued to the trash bins at the side of the cabin, positioned strategically where the men couldn't see the back door. Meanwhile, Vincent exited through the rear, using a service path Emma had shown Sarah during a previous visit. The path curved around to where they had parked the van, hidden by trees from the watching SUV. Sarah finished her chore and went back inside, making sure the men saw her return. 10 minutes later, following their plan, she caused a diversion by setting off the cabin's fire alarm. As predicted, the security men approached the cabin to investigate. The moment they did, Sarah slipped out the back door and raced along the path to where Vincent waited in the van, engine already running. "Go!" she urged as she jumped in. Vincent accelerated down the rear access road, avoiding the main drive where the SUV was parked. By the time Blackwood's men realized what was happening, they had a significant head start. "We have 90 minutes to reach the board meeting," Vincent said, checking the time. "And we need to evade any pursuit." They took back roads, changing direction several times to throw off followers. Vincent drove with intense concentration, his jaw set with determination. "What do you think Detective Mason found?" Sarah asked. "Best case? The fingerprints belong to Catherine or someone directly connected to her. Worst case? They're inconclusive but still provide reasonable doubt about the accident narrative." As they approached the city, Vincent grew quieter, more focused. Sarah recognized the weight settling on his shoulders. Everything he had worked for, his independence, his future, hung on what happened in the next hour. "Whatever happens," she said softly, "you're not alone anymore." Vincent's hand briefly left the controls to squeeze hers. "That means more than you know." They arrived at Armstrong Financial headquarters with 15 minutes to spare. The imposing glass tower reflected the morning sun, dozens of stories reaching toward the sky, a physical manifestation of what Vincent had built from nothing. Detective Mason was waiting in the underground parking garage as promised, a folder tucked under his arm. His expression was grim but determined. "Mr. Armstrong," he greeted as they parked. "Ms. Mitchell, we need to move quickly. Your board meeting starts in 12 minutes, and I have reason to believe Ms. Sinclair intends to take control today." "The fingerprints?" Vincent asked as Sarah helped him into his wheelchair. "Belonged to a known associate of Maxwell Blackwood, a man with priors for fraud and criminal tampering. He was paid through an offshore account we've linked to transfers, initiated by Catherine Sinclair 3 days before your accident." Vincent's breath caught. "You have proof?" Mason nodded, patting the folder. "Enough to arrest both of them, but I thought you might want to handle this your way first." As they entered the elevator heading to the top-floor boardroom, Vincent's phone rang. It was Blackwood. "Where are you, Vincent?" His voice was strained. "The board is assembled. Catherine is preparing to present evidence of your mental instability." "I'll be there, Max," Vincent replied calmly. "Save me a seat." The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor. Sarah could feel the weight of this moment. Vincent returning to the company he built, confronting those who betrayed him. She started to hang back, but Vincent caught her hand. "Stay with me," he said quietly. "Please." Together, with Detective Mason following, they moved toward the boardroom doors. Just before entering, Vincent paused, taking a deep breath. Sarah saw not weakness in that moment, but incredible strength. A man prepared to reclaim everything that had been taken from him. The boardroom doors swung open. The boardroom fell silent. As Vincent wheeled in, flanked by Sarah and Detective Mason, 14 pairs of eyes turned toward them. 12 board members, Blackwood and Catherine, who stood at the head of the table mid-presentation. "Vincent." Catherine recovered first, her surprise quickly masked with a practiced smile. "How?" "Unexpected. We were just discussing your health situation." "I can see that," Vincent replied, nodding toward the medical charts displayed on the screen behind her. "Although I don't recall authorizing my private medical information to be shared with the board." "As your power of attorney," Catherine began. "A position you're about to lose," Vincent interrupted, wheeling further into the room. His voice was calm, but carried a steely authority that commanded attention. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but I believe Ms. Sinclair and Mr. Blackwood have been misleading you." Blackwood stepped forward, his composure slipping. "Vincent, you're clearly distressed. Perhaps we should continue this meeting another day when you're feeling more stable." Detective Mason chose that moment to introduce himself, badge in hand. "Detective James Mason, Major Crimes Division. I'm here regarding the attempt on Mr. Armstrong's life 18 months ago." A murmur ran through the board members. An elderly woman at the far end spoke up. "What is the meaning of this, Vincent?" "The meaning, Mrs. Winters, is that my accident wasn't an accident at all. My brake lines were deliberately cut." Vincent's gaze swept the room. "By someone hired by Catherine Sinclair and Maxwell Blackwood." Catherine's perfectly composed facade cracked. "That's absurd. Vincent is having a paranoid episode. This is exactly what we've been concerned about." Detective Mason opened his folder, placing documents on the table. Fingerprint evidence, financial transactions, phone records. Ms. Sinclair arranged payment to a known criminal 3 days before Mr. Armstrong's accident, conveniently timed just after he announced plans to restructure the board and reevaluate Mr. Blackwood's position. The chairman, a distinguished man in his 60s, examined the evidence with growing concern. "These are serious allegations." "They're more than allegations," Vincent stated. "While I was recovering, Catherine used her temporary power of attorney to authorize financial decisions that benefited her and Blackwood personally. I've brought complete documentation." Sarah handed additional files to the chairman, who began reviewing them with increasing alarm. "And now," Vincent continued, "they've attempted to have me declared mentally incompetent to prevent me from exposing their actions." Blackwood moved toward the door, but Detective Mason blocked his path. "Not so fast, Mr. Blackwood." Catherine's composure shattered completely. "This is ridiculous. Vincent was always paranoid, always suspicious, which is why I installed security cameras in my home gym," Vincent interrupted, nodding to Sarah, who produced a tablet. "Including this footage from yesterday of you and Blackwood discussing how to drug me before this meeting." As the recording played, Catherine's face drained of color. The board members watched in stunned silence as Catherine's voice clearly stated her intentions to make sure Vincent appears incompetent during the evaluation. The chairman rose to his feet. "I believe we've seen enough. Detective, please proceed with whatever actions you deem necessary. The board will cooperate fully with your investigation." As Detective Mason read Catherine and Blackwood their rights, Vincent turned to Sarah, reaching for her hand. The subtle squeeze he gave her contained everything words couldn't express in that moment: gratitude, relief, and something deeper that had blossomed between them against all odds. The battle was won, but as Vincent looked around the boardroom that had once been the center of his world, he realized his priorities had fundamentally shifted. The company no longer represented his future. Something much more precious did. 1 year later, Sarah stood on the deck of the yacht, watching the sunset paint the horizon in brilliant oranges and pinks. The gentle rocking of the vessel beneath her feet had become a familiar comfort over the past months. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Vincent's voice came from behind her. Sarah turned to see him walking slowly toward her, using a cane for support. His progress over the past year had been remarkable, not a complete recovery, but something medical professionals were calling extraordinary. Partial sensation had returned to his legs, and with intensive therapy, he had regained limited mobility. "Almost as beautiful as you," she replied, smiling as he reached her. Vincent leaned his cane against the railing and wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her close. "Flatterer." "How was your meeting?" Sarah asked, resting her head against his shoulder. "Productive. The foundation is officially launched." Vincent's eyes shone with quiet pride. "The Sarah Mitchell Foundation for Neonatal Research and Family Support will open its doors next month." Sarah felt the familiar ache in her chest. Not the sharp pain of fresh grief, but the bittersweet throb of remembrance. "He would have been 2 today." "I know," Vincent said softly, pressing a kiss to her temple. The past year had brought profound changes. After Catherine and Blackwood's arrests, Vincent had surprised everyone by stepping down as CEO of Armstrong Financial, remaining only as chairman of the board. Instead, he had focused on his recovery and establishing the foundation, using his wealth and influence to support families who had experienced similar losses to Sarah's. The locked room in the mansion, the one that had first sparked Sarah's curiosity, had been transformed from a secret rehabilitation space into the foundation's first office, a symbol of how suffering could be repurposed into healing. "Do you ever regret it?" Sarah asked, voicing a question that occasionally still troubled her. "Giving up the company you built?" Vincent shook his head. "I built Armstrong Financial believing it was everything. Then I lost what I thought was everything and found something far more valuable." He turned to face her fully. "You showed me how to live again, Sarah, how to find purpose beyond ambition." Sarah touched the small diamond ring on her finger, a recent addition that still felt wonderfully foreign. "Besides," Vincent added with a smile, "our next adventure is about to begin." As if on cue, the cabin door opened, and a social worker appeared with a small bundle in her arms. A 6-month-old baby girl whose parents had died in a car accident, with no family to claim her. The adoption paperwork had been finalized that morning. "Mr. and Mrs. Armstrong," the social worker said, "someone's ready to meet you." As Sarah took the baby in her arms, she felt the circle of life completing itself, not erasing her past losses, but weaving them into a new tapestry of hope. The child blinked up at them with curious eyes, unaware she was the beginning of a new family born from brokenness made whole again. Vincent wrapped his arms around them both, his voice thick with emotion as he whispered, "Welcome home, little one. Welcome home."